Hi, we're Nia and Marianne from Seren Health Coaching. We are metabolic health coaches who are passionate about good metabolic health for everyone. We also love to chat about all things health and to share as much information as we can with people who want to make changes to their lifestyle but aren't quite sure where to start. We're going to release a new episode every Friday where we talk about a different aspect of health. So do subscribe and let us know what you think. We'd also love to know what you're interested in too. So if there's something that you'd like us to have a chat about, do send us a message and we'll do our best to cover it soon.
Right. Hi,
Hello,
Nia.
Marianne.
Nice to see you. And I think we're talking about something you're particularly interested in. Not that I am not actually, but I've sort of got the T-shirt and you haven't got it yet, which
I'm
means
waiting.
you maybe have more vested interest in the subject. But it is really topical at the
Yes.
moment, and things have changed in many ways. So we're talking about HRT and the menopause and metabolic health.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're putting it all together today
Okay.
because I keep having chats, unsurprisingly, because of my age and the
Yeah.
age of a lot of my friends, I keep
At the
having
at
chats
the
about
school
this.
gates. Yeah.
Yep, yeah, well, everywhere actually.
Yeah.
But I keep having these chats about menopause, and
Yeah.
also I have obviously not been living in a bubble. There is a huge national conversation about
Mm,
menopause, about
there is.
HRT,
Yeah.
and I think it's really important to have a balanced view. And what
Yeah.
I am currently finding is
Yeah.
that the balance of the pendulum has swung so far in
Mm,
one direction that I'm not
mhm.
sure women are really understanding what's going on and what's available to them, and they're being kind of given an idea that's not necessarily 100% correct.
I get that feeling too because I sort of feel miffed now that I lived in an era where, in a way, the pendulum was on the other end.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
didn't get offered or ask for
HRT.
HRT because it was this huge, this paper came out and we all stopped prescribing it because there was cancer, breast cancer risk was highlighted.
Yeah.
Um, and that has since been somewhat disproved, I think, although the risk isn't nothing. It's not the sort of risk we were sold at the time.
Mm.
Okay.
So there's been a massive increase in awareness of menopause, and there's a massive increase in awareness of HRT and its
Yeah.
effects, huge inroads into women's health. And it's really, really important. And we've
Yeah.
never had a time in history where we've been so aware of the complexity and the lack of information that we have about women and their bodies and what happens, because
Yeah. Love it. I love
really,
the
really complex.
yeah. I love
Um,
the
s-
conversation.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's fabulous that we're having this conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
So now we have formulations called bioidentical HRT.
I love
And
the sound of that. Yeah.
I know it's a great little tag, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that means we can use lower doses.
Okay.
So we don't have to give such high levels of estrogen.
A bit like birth control.
Yes. And now it's
Yeah.
mini pills and things like that.
Yeah.
And of course, just very briefly, higher doses of things like that can be associated with blood clots and things.
Yeah. So you're lowering the risks.
Yeah, you lower the
Yeah.
risks. And then regulations. So taking something as a pill orally gives you a totally different risk profile to something like a
Oh, okay.
gel or a patch that's
Yes.
absorbed through the skin. So that does mitigate some of the risks and the side effects.
Worries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about the horse business. I'm always
Oh,
interested in the horse business.
yeah.
So, the older type HRTs.
So you wouldn't know this because you never saw the box and you weren't giving it out. But
No.
old HRT, some of the estrogens were derived from equine, so horse urine. And they
Yeah.
had a beautiful horse on the box, which was kind of running free.
So if
And
you were horsey, you wouldn't have minded so much, but I thought that was a little bit
well,
off-putting.
I don't know how many people read the leaflet and realised it came from the
No.
urine of a horse.
They probably
I
didn't.
actually asked somebody this week who didn't have that particular brand, but did take her HRT at that time, and she was not aware that was where it was
That
coming
any
from.
that any was made from horse urine.
No. So,
Okay. Well,
that's an interesting by the by. But anyway, so now we don't have that any longer. We have
yeah.
this bioidentical HRT. So
Yeah.
that is fabulous. And there's so many more options, and the conversation has meant that there is a great deal more access. and that women who are going to see their practitioners with
Yeah.
symptoms related to their menopause are more likely to be offered treatment, are more likely to
Yeah.
be listened to and not
Yeah.
sent
All
away,
really good.
which is absolutely amazing. I mean, this is great news.
So what are we actually podcasting about? Because that should be the end of the conversation, shouldn't it? So so
Yes.
we know about the menopause, we're talking about it, it's not taboo. We're acknowledging that women have changes that might affect their lives, and we're more likely to get replacement hormones that will
Yep.
help some of the symptoms.
Yep.
So what are we talking about?
Well, I got a bit interested, didn't I? And I started doing more research. And then I
Yeah.
wanted to know, because obviously our interest is in metabolic health, and I
Yes.
wanted to know how this all fitted in because
Okay. Okay.
there are, as with anything that takes off, there's
Yeah.
always people who use it
Yeah.
outside the box.
Yeah.
And there's always some sort of influencer who's going to tell you that this is the answer to all your problems. Um,
Yes.
and I started talking to women who were taking HRT who were saying, okay, well, I had these symptoms. I had some HRT and it helped with this, but it didn't help with that.
Okay.
Um, and I realized that this was only one part of the puzzle.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're not just gonna take a replacement, hormone and then sail off into the sunset?
Well, yes. I mean, we now talk about the risks of postmenopausal living. So that's really important to talk about too.
You mean the normal aging process?
The normal aging
Ye
process, yes.
yeah.
But we know that once women have gone through the menopause, there's an
Yeah.
increased risk
Yeah.
of cardiovascular diseases like
Yes.
strokes and heart attacks,
'Cause
a loss of
we were sort of protected by
by estrogen,
estrogen.
yeah,
Yeah.
a loss of bone density, which
Yes.
increases the risk of fractures. So
Yes.
as we're getting older and we're living more independently,
Yeah.
in most cases for an older age, but we still know that the impact of a fracture can be life
It's
changing on an
huge.
older
Yeah.
population.
Okay.
So that obviously needs to be taken into account. And it's
Yeah.
really important for all of us to consider how we're going to live longer in the best health
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah. With the best functionality. Yeah.
And where I came from really was, okay, this is all fabulous, but should we expect HRT to be doing
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
for all of us and to have this impact? I mean, it was just
Mm.
I couldn't make the equation balance. I couldn't understand how just by adding this back in, we were going to somehow solve all the problems.
Yes, I do believe you're right, and that there has been this pendulum swing, which means we can negate the negative effects of maybe hormone changes at midlife. And
Mm,
so it turns out this isn't the panacea we were sort of hoping for, and it's
mm.
not just as simple as taking a pill for every ill. Then
Isn't that annoying? There's no magic
isn't that
potion
annoying?
yet
Yeah,
again.
yeah,
So I want to be really clear that
yeah.
HRT does have a place, that
Of course.
treating the symptoms of menopause for some women, um, it has
Yeah,
been life changing.
yeah.
So I'm not suggesting that we all go, oh no, we'll actually take a step back. We won't take HRT. I'm not saying that. It's a completely personal decision, and there may be really good reasons to take it.
Yeah. So some people will get more benefits. And for instance, timing's also interesting, I always think, because
Yep.
we all menopause at slightly different ages. So and people have surgical menopauses really early sometimes, where you can imagine HRT is a really useful tool. Yeah.
It's an absolutely indispensable tool in the
Yeah.
box. But I
Okay.
really am kind of butting up against the idea that somehow it is
Mm.
solving all our problems.
Yeah.
So estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are the three
Yeah.
main sex hormones in women. There are
Yeah.
actually lots of other hormones. They have lots of
Of
complex
course.
functions like
Yeah.
getting us pregnant, keeping us pregnant, helping us bond with our baby, helping us
Yeah. Lactate.
make milk for the
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
There's we have
Yeah. Yeah.
lots of hormones. Okay, men, you're very simple in comparison. So I just want to focus on these three main ones. They
Okay.
do have these reproductive functions. Obviously, we know all about ovulation and
Yeah.
periods and all the rest of it,
Yeah.
but they do so much more. and they have functions in almost every other organ in the body. So they work on your cholesterol, your glucose metabolism, your blood pressure, your muscles and joints, your bone density, your brain function. There are so many more things that these sex hormones do than just keep you fertile
Okay.
and giving you a cycle.
Okay. So why not just replace them?
Well, because they will basically not act as a magic potion. So think about you
Mm,
and me. We've had
mm.
this fertile period of our life where we've both
Yeah.
had estrogen.
Yeah.
Been experiencing the benefits of this estrogen
Yeah.
throughout our
Without
fertile
knowing
life
really
without
that we
knowing. Yeah.
were. Yeah.
But before we changed our lifestyles and before we started thinking about
Health. Yeah. Metabolic
diet
health.
how our
Yeah.
diet was affecting us, how
Yeah.
the exercise we did was helping our glucose metabolism or helping us to be strong
Yeah.
and our bone
Which we
density,
didn't even know.
which we
Yeah.
didn't even know. If we hadn't
No.
addressed those, would we be expecting estrogen to do all these things for us later
No,
on?
it seems absolutely daft when you say it like that we'd expect. So, for instance, I take thyroxine, which is replacing a thyroid hormone, which is another bit of, hormone replacement, not quite the same.
Yeah,
Um, and what I do know is that just taking the replacement does not just instantly sort your health out,
no,
because who knew that health is much bigger than one hormone or two
exactly. Or
hormones?
two, yeah,
Okay.
or three. So my point basically being is if you haven't paid
Yeah.
attention to your metabolic health
Yes.
before now,
Which you might not have.
when
Yes.
you're having all these estrogen, how can you expect estrogen to
Just
suddenly
replacing the estrogen to
to
do
do
it for
magic
you.
things? Yeah. And I
Okay.
really do think
Mm.
that it's not the answer to everything. It's a synergistic tool that we can have
Yes.
access to if we
Yes.
want.
Yeah.
But we can't run away with the idea that just by replacing our hormones, we're going to
Mm.
solve all our problems.
I see that. I see that. And I suspect we've come full circle, and we now almost selling the idea that you can replace aging in this way. But
Yeah.
you're going to age anyway. You're going to menopause anyway, aren't you? Whether you take HRT or not,
Yes.
because you're menopausing. It's not to do with the replacement.
Yes. So, and I am no way wanting to belittle the fact that some people have
Oh yes,
incredibly hard
yeah,
menopauses,
yeah,
and this in no way actually can guarantee that you're not going to experience menopausal symptoms, because even having optimal metabolic health, you may still get the vasodilator symptoms like the hot
yeah,
flashes, or
yeah.
there are still things that we don't know how they're linked, and we
I
don't
mean,
know how we can affect.
there are two real symptoms that as I understand it, that HRT is very useful for, and one is the um, the hot
The hot flushes,
flushes.
yeah.
It does well with them, but not for everybody. I do know
No.
people who've taken
Yeah.
HRT and still hot flashing. And the other is bone health, which is more relevant for some people who are more at risk. But
Yeah.
again, that's only part of it, because of course your bone health it's multifactorial.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
just taking estrogen is not going to guarantee that you're not going to break your hip one day.
Absolutely. So
Okay.
what I am saying is that I have come to the conclusion that if
Yeah.
you optimize your metabolic health, or if you
Yes.
take steps to improve your metabolic health,
Yes.
you are providing yourself with the very best
Yes.
foundation to be in the best possible state to have the best possible menopause that you personally can have. Now, we all know there's all these other factors and genetics,
Yes.
and who
We all
knows
have
what's going to
different
happen. You
risks.
just
Yeah.
don't know that till you get there. But if you had that option at the beginning to say, I have some control over this, and things that I can do will positively impact my experience, I feel that that's another massive tool in the box that isn't getting the
Yes.
airtime it needs.
So what you're doing is trying to balance our view really, because I think we never sold, like all of the things we've talked about before, we never sold lifestyle and improving metabolic health as part of that
Yeah.
toolbox. It's somehow left out of the conversations, particularly around medications. So
Mm.
we don't say to somebody, look, there are lots of reasons why your blood pressure might get higher as you age. There's not to say that medications aren't really useful. They're really useful at decreasing some people's risks, but there are other things that might
That
also
work
be
really
affecting
well.
your blood
Y-
pressure. So
Yeah.
could we look at all of it across the board? And I do think midlife, only because I've been there and done it, is a time when often things catch up with you. So you've sort of got away with the way you've lived for a long time. And then slowly at
Mm.
midlife, you're starting to run out of energy. You're putting on more weight than you wanted to, particularly around your middle. You're mad about it. I remember being really mad about it.
Yeah, but yeah.
You don't really understand where it's all coming from. Then you
Mm.
get the anxiety. Sometimes you get loss of confidence. You get
Mhm.
the bad sleep. You get the hot flushes. I mean, it's not terribly attractive. This I'm not really
No,
selling
you're
it,
not
but
selling us, but
no.
yeah,
But what I mean is that a lot of that is not just because you're losing
estrogen.
estrogen and progesterone.
Yeah. So I think the bottom line has to be, the
Mm,
message has to be that if you want the best possible menopause that you can have,
yes.
if you take control now, whether it's before your menopausal
Yes,
or
I mean,
during your
better to do it
menopausal,
before, but
yeah, better
yeah,
to do it before, but for some people
yeah,
that simply
yeah,
isn't an
yeah,
option. I'm not a time
yeah,
traveler. But if you can do something that is going
yeah.
to help you, then that's going to have a really positive effect.
Mm,
And you may still need to take HRT. And as I said, I am not against
yes,
HRT
and
at all.
maybe you should.
And
Yeah.
maybe you should. But it's like trying to build a skyscraper without having the foundations. It will fall over.
I do think that because it's become so topical and in a really good way it has, we
Mm,
losing some of a sight of the fact that it's a normal aging process. And also that the menopause is part of aging, it's part of beyond this as well, isn't it?
mm,
That
mm.
those metabolic sort of optimizing health blocks that you're going to put in place are going to be there forever. So in fact, decreasing your lean muscle mass loss, making sure that you're keeping as much bone as you can. All
Yeah.
these things will count long after you've forgotten all about the hot flushes and
Yeah.
the
So
yeah,
yeah, the menopause part of it is just like a phase.
yeah. It's only one small bit.
Yeah, you have to pass through that to get to the postmenopausal part
And then you're really going to know how much optimizing your metabolic health is going to
to
make
be helpful.
for
Yeah.
such, well, not only in terms of longevity, because no one wants to live a long time in a terrible state. So
No, no,
the
no, no.
fact is, aging beyond the menopause is a whole another real
Yeah.
place to gain so many rewards if
Yeah,
you do
absolutely.
something about your metabolic health.
Yeah, and I think really by having this conversation, and what I'm
Mm,
trying to say is if you look at what you're eating, if you look at how you're
yeah.
exercising, and
Yeah,
you look at your stress and you look at your
yes,
sleep, you are
yes,
going a long way to helping yourself.
yeah,
And that then continues into your postmenopausal life. And I
yeah.
do not want people to have a miserable menopause. I think that's awful.
No,
And I
no.
don't want people to dread going through the menopause thinking it's going to be awful. I want people to say, I have done the best I possibly can to put myself in a position to have the best time in this period of life. And I still believe that, we have to have the conversations and people have to be aware and have support.
Do you think we're not very good at having conversations around aging only because of our cultural
Yeah.
sort of perceptions about youth and beauty being the thing and aging
Yeah.
being something? Yeah, I mean, at least we are removing the taboo around the menopause because
Yeah. But now
no
we
one
need to
wanted to
remove the
talk
taboo
about
around
it. I
aging.
mean, I
Yeah.
often talk to people my age and say, "What sort of menopause did your mother have?" Because I'm always interested in whether there's,
The
genetic,
genetic
but not
link.
only
Yeah.
genetic, also role modeling and
Yeah.
cultural differences in how we view things like aging. And they'll often say, "Oh, I never asked my mother," or "I have no idea because my mother never said." Well,
Yeah.
nobody talked about the
No, no, no,
menopause.
no. Yeah. It's
So
fascinating, isn't
there
it?
we go. So now we're all going to talk about it, and that's a great idea. I like that. And
Yeah.
I think, having open conversations about things like how you manage in the workplace during times of hormonal
Yeah, now
change is a
that's another
great
part of
thing.
my mission, is
Yes.
because actually we
Yeah.
don't want to lose those people.
No.
You don't want
Ground.
to lose the talent that you've invested in. Women
No.
have immense
Yeah.
talents and
Exactly.
offerings that we don't want to just dismiss because they had to leave their job because their menopause was so awful. No,
There's quite shocking
there
statistics
is somewhere.
around, yeah, women not taking promotions or women going part-time because often they're the main sort of sources of care. So they're caring often for children, and elderly parents and trying to get promotion at work. I
Mm,
think it's often when women just think, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm
yeah.
going to
So
have to cut something.
there's an interesting survey that was in 2023. UK
Yeah,
workplace healthcare provider
yeah,
Simply Health surveyed more than 2,000 working women between 40 and 60 years old. So
yeah.
that's not a great sample size, but it's not a
No, but
terrible
it's
one.
something, yeah.
23% considered resigning due to the impact of their menopause, and
A quarter.
14% said they're planning to hand in their notice.
So a quarter of women are struggling at work at that time, at
Yeah, and
midlife. So that's not all to do with hormonal change, obviously. That's to do with life too. Yeah. So that's
that's
fascinating. So that's why it's become so topical too, because don't you
yeah,
always think that there has to be some resource business involved in any westernized topical matters? Because, as you say, we're losing a quarter of that talent in a
yeah,
workforce
yeah,
by people not
yeah.
accepting promotions or wanting to work part time, or even saying they can't deal with the job they're doing.
They're doing, yeah. And what we want, really, I suppose, is to say that we're living longer. We need to
Yeah.
live well.
You
And I
do.
don't want you to have the last third of your life miserable. That would
No,
just be
agreed.
awful.
In all your conversations about HRT and the menopause, does anyone ever talk about the fact that there are benefits to menopausing?
No. I mean, personally,
Never.
no, no one's ever said
Are
to me,
you
I'm really glad I'm
skeptical?
going through the menopause. No.
Are you
I
skeptical?
do.
Do
I
you
think
do?
there are. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think I ever hear, apart from myself droning on, about the amazing pluses because it's going to happen to you anyway. So let's not beat about the bush. You're going to
Yeah.
menopause. Everyone's
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
menopause. But what nobody talks about is that there are huge benefits beyond this turbulent time of hormonal change.
Mm.
Your body adjusts eventually. How amazing! You will live on.
Yeah.
You, as you say, you want to live on in the best possible way.
Mm.
But imagine getting rid of PMT,
Yes.
PCOS,
Yes.
cycles. I mean, there's so much to be
My
gained.
husband is very up for the menopause so that he doesn't have to live
Yes.
with my
Uh,
PMT.
yeah,
Poor
PMT
man.
is terrible, isn't it? And it gets worse towards the menopause in our culture for whatever reason. We could
Yeah.
talk about that on another podcast.
Although,
As-
that's just as an aside. I've started adding more soy products to my diet,
ah,
tofu and tempeh,
yes.
in a bid to see whether or not some
Yeah, yeah,
phytoestrogens will
yeah,
help
in
my
a
PMT.
Japanese way.
Yeah.
I
Although
love
I'm on the
it.
hunt for recipes, so if anyone's got any good recipes,
For temper.
do send them.
Yes, interesting. And why not? Because what have you got to lose?
Well, quite. So I think overall, the message is the menopause is not all bad news.
No.
And if we approach it in a way of trying to improve our health to the best state
Yeah, in
possible,
general.
we
Yeah.
could actually have the best menopause we could possibly have.
Yes, I love that. And CHRT as an option that's great for some people, even in the short term. I mean, there's
Yeah,
differences between short, medium, and long term use of
yeah,
hormone replacement. So it's a huge science.
yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the good news now, is that we are only going to learn more. But
Yeah.
I wanted to balance the books, as you might say, to say,
Yes.
let's also remember that we have an
Yeah.
ability to inform ourselves and to change our lifestyles
And we
too.
can menopause without HRT if we want to.
Absolutely.
It is
Yeah, there's no
possible.
requirement.
Lovely. Well, I'll watch with interest now.
Thank you. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.